my experiment was like, well, this is my ride. This is my ride. So if it's gonna be my ride, people can either like get on the Incredicoaster or they can, go on Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't, it's my ride.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. Do you tend to package yourself up and try to make yourself acceptable or popular? What would it be like to be more yourself across every single place you show up? How would it impact your business to move further in that direction? Let's dive into that question with Michelle Markwart Deveaux. Michelle works with voice professionals to become the people they need to be in order to run the businesses they want to create. She helps people with voices to unleash their message with power and sustainability. Welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So will you start us off by telling us who you work with and how you make money working with them?
Yes. So I work with two groups of people. I work with voice users, so performers, artists, singers, podcasters, executives, anyone who uses their literal voice. I work with them in a one-on-one modality, doing like coaching and message development and technical work, all of that kind of thing. And then I also get to work with other people like me who are voice-related business owners, helping them create businesses for voice users that expand the way that we use our voice in the world. And I do that with a membership group and a couple other mastermind service-based programs combined with content.
Okay, beautiful. And I feel like I can imagine that it's really fun to be part of your community.
Thank you. I feel like we have a pretty great time because we have a very, very big GIF game going on. We know how to GIF like no one else.
I like to use a lot of GIFs in my coaching.
I love them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
GIFs and emojis. Speaking of voice, GIFs and emoji, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think they're powerful tools to communicate.
So the thing that I am so excited about diving in with you about is something that came to my attention when you and I were in a mastermind together in 2020, led by Tara McMullen. And you said a lot of amazing things over the course of the year. This one thing. Yeah. And the one thing that you said where I was like, okay, please come on Rebel Therapist and talk about this. You said that you did an experiment, a 30-day experiment. Can you tell us about that?
I did. So it was at a time where I was pretty new, maybe like a year into my business. And I did the experiment of what if I showed up 100% as myself? What if I didn't filter? What if I didn't worry about how my messaging came across? What if I wrote the way that I spoke when I was with my closest friends? What if I did a Facebook Live in what I would wear when I was going to hang out with my clients? Just that was the experiment.
So there was something about like the packaging up of yourself, the kind of the ways that you were holding back certain parts of yourself. There was something you were doing or not doing that was making it feel a lot less joyful.
Yes, I very much felt like every time I went to sit down at the computer to either write a blog or write a post or to do a Facebook Live or whatever, that I had this like, okay, put on voice teacher Michelle, put on business coach Michelle, and what words can I use that will make people take me seriously and think that I know what I'm talking about? And it was extremely emotionally exhausting, number one. And number two, it was like literally just hard to write because you're trying to have a different voice than what is your internal monologue and what are kind of the way that you would express yourself normally. Because, how many downloadables have been like, use this script, use that template, show up like this, especially as new business owners that are marketing online. So,
What do you think the difference is between that Michelle that shows up when you're feeling liberated to be yourself and the one that you had packaged? And I mean, like, for some of us, I think it's like for me, it would be, oh, people want you to be louder and bolder. And then for some people, it's the opposite that they tell themselves, oh, people want me to be quieter and more contained. There's so many different things that we've heard we're supposed to be. What do you think the difference is for you?
yeah. So, one of the big differences is that I'm not supposed, this is going to sound very silly, I'm sure, but this is what was in my head. Don't swear. People will not take you seriously if you swear. And I mean, I'm a sailor through and through. I love do not be hyperbolic. People will, oh my God, I'm a performer, Annie. I mean, are you
Yeah.
for real? Like, how can I not? When you're a jet all the way, right? It's like, also this idea of your tone in your writing. This was a big one. Your tone in your writing, I literally got told this. You're too colloquial. And so I was trying so hard to sound academic and professional. And then in live speaking, interestingly enough, trying to be more subdued.
Hmm.
And really that just comes from to be blunt, just the kind of like the approximation to like white male success story. Like, what does your voice need to sound like? You can't go up and you can't go down like that. That's too much. What are you talking about? Um, because it's too much. It's too big. It's too different. It takes me too many places. And so I think my experiment was like, well, this is my ride. This is my ride. So if it's gonna be my ride, people can either like get on the Incredicoaster or they can, go on Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't, it's my ride. So that's such a great question, like the difference. So I would also say you're not allowed to think too highly of yourself. You're not allowed to talk about what you've done well. You're not allowed to celebrate. Everything has to be very like, thank you, thank you. Just like perform. We're taught as performers, right? Just graciously say thank you, graciously say thank you. Instead of like, I'm fucking awesome. And here we are.
Yeah. What did you notice right away? I guess the first thing I want to know about is what did you notice in terms of energy? Did you find that you had more energy for the times you were showing up? Did you feel like you were kind of dreading them less?
No. In fact, opposite, my first week, I was pretty sure that I was going to die. I, like, felt nauseous every single time I hit send. I felt fearful every time I hit post. I was very trepidatious, like, lots of trepidation. And I think that at the time too, I don't think that I was allowing myself to acknowledge that it was okay that that external feedback matters to me. Because we do also have a story around like, don't care what anyone else thinks. You can't control what anyone thinks about you, which is true. But I think I was denying that it wasn't important to me. Like, again, I'm a performer. I want people to stand up and clap. And so when they don't, I feel bad. I feel yucky. And I think at the time that was probably one of the biggest things that was beneficial about it was like, no, I'm going to go for the applause and then I'm going to take it. But that first week was like, what if nobody applauds? What if tomatoes, the hook, and I get pulled off stage, right?
Yeah, so in the beginning, you didn't know what kind of response you were getting, and I'm assuming, like, if we're talking about Like, can you tell me about, was it social media? You mentioned emails. Some of those spaces you may not get a response right away. So you're just sort of sending it out into the void.
Mhm. So, it was pretty scary when I got, like, a handful of people just unsubscribe, like, within that first week. That was like, "Oh, okay." And I will say that the kind of air quotes negative feedback always shows I mean, duh, right? It always is louder than the positive feedback, but it presented itself first. So, you know, people don't often write you back in your email list, for example, and say, "Oh my gosh, this email really impacted." Sometimes they do, but it is more likely that you will see people just unsubscribe than you will get, like, positive reviews, like, "Keep writing. I love reading your writing," all of that. So, ton of people unsubscribed. I lost followers on all my platforms, and that was hard, but it presented me with a choice. You either double down or you go back. And that, I think, is to your point, like, what about the energy? When you look back, when I had to ask myself, what's the return on investment here? And the emotional time, the mental space I got back from not caring as much, what other,
Not
manipulating.
packaging yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was just so much less tiring.
Yeah.
I felt that manifest in the way I was more present for my kids, the way I was more present for my spouse, more myself even, and I thought, "Well, if I lose everybody, that'll really suck, but I think I like this better." Like,
Okay.
I think I like the way I feel better.
So you kinda like, it sounds like you did something I love to do of taking yourself all the way to the worst case scenario. Like, I lose everybody, and is this worth it?
I call in my world, I call that the down by the river moment, the
Yeah,
van
yeah.
down by the river. Like,
Yeah,
what's the worst that can happen? You wind up in a van down by the river.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I love that exercise, and I did that.
So, do you remember any particular moments of liberation? Do you remember any particular moments of, like, whether it was something you said or something you allowed yourself to wear? Do you remember any particular moments where you were like, "Oh, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna do it this way?"
Yes, I was doing a Facebook Live, and I was talking about being a mom. Now this is pre-2020, so this is before people were, like, stay at home working and parenting at the same time. And I was talking about being a mom and running a business at the same time, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but this feeling came over me where I just kind of, like, called bullshit on this idea that you can't have it all. And I do believe that you can have it all. You just have to plan it very well, and it might not all be at the same time, right? So, and I remember in my head looking at the screen, right? Because you're on Facebook, so you're, like, looking at the screen, you're watching your own face, and I remember looking and thinking, "If I say this out loud, what's gonna happen? If I really don't fall in line with all the moms that feel awful about owning a business and it's so hard and not drawing boundaries. If I really say, if you want to have a successful business and be a parent at the same time, figure it out. Stop complaining about it and just figure it out." And it was like that moment where it's like 2 seconds, but a million years in your head. What if I just say this? And then before I knew it, it was just out of my mouth. And that was probably the first time where I was like, I just said something really unpopular.
Like, something that could really piss somebody off or make them decide that you're on the other side of something.
Absolutely. And I don't even remember, to be honest, Annie, I don't even remember the reaction to it. But I do remember that being like, well, guess that hat is thrown over the fence. There's no going back now. Because once they know that I'm okay with kicking my kids out of my office, they're gonna make a judgment about me, and it's gonna be either good or bad. right? Like they're going to make some decision about what kind of mom I am. They're going to make some decision about what kind of business owner I am, and it's over.
Okay, so here's where, like, with people I'm coaching, here's where I always want to point out, okay, and in that very moment, a lot of people who actually need you just found you.
Exactly.
And that is a side effect. And like as I'm hearing you tell it, it's sort of not the point. It's just a really good side effect. But the point isn't to strategically like, say this thing that's gonna have this impact. It's really to be aligned and to be finding your voice and using your voice and living in integrity. But that side effect is awesome.
Yeah. Hindsight 2020, I now look back and can see that the choice to say a thing that might be deemed unpopular is exactly the thing that attracts people who want the same thing, because they're secretly wanting something unpopular too. And I don't even have to agree with their version of unpopular. It's like that's not the point, that we agree with the thing that's unpopular. The point is that there's a person who lives a similar lifestyle as I do, who has a similar goal than I do, and they are okay with putting themselves out there. If they can do it, I can do it. And I think that, if we are going to be leaders in our fields, that's what we sign up for, modeling the behavior that we desire to unleash in our clients.
Yeah. We're going to get right back to Michelle. This is future Annie jumping in to tell you about Create Your Program. Create Your Program is my 5-week small group coaching process to help you create and launch your signature program. So with me and a small group of innovative entrepreneurs, you're going to turn your magic into a unique program. Having a signature program can help you step into the next phase of your business where you're going to make a bigger impact, work in more creative ways, and move towards setting up your life the way you want it to be. I would love to have you join me. Head over to rebeltherapist.me/create to learn all about it. All right, let's jump back in with Michelle. Getting back to your experiment, like what kind of feedback did you eventually start getting from people that was more positive?
So specifically, I remember, I remember an email from someone saying, "Thank you for giving me permission to be myself." That was pretty powerful and felt very good, right? There's my claps. I got my claps.
Yeah.
Um, Oftentimes now when I go and I say what I think, people will put things like truth bomb, or they'll be like, "Oh, that's so true." And I'm going to change this. Like they'll take an action. So that's a very positive result. It's also given me a ton of time back, because I used to spin a lot when I would write, like just spin on like, okay, how do I word this? How do I word that? And part of that is because I have a high value in communication. I love words. I love writing and using words in funny ways and being hyperbolic. But now it's like the things that take me the time are more like crafting the true intent, rather than here's my true intent. How do I say it in a palatable way? Right. I have more confidence,
Mm-hmm.
because if you show up as yourself and people do or do not like you, there's no question.
Yes.
There's no questioning anymore. Either you like me or you don't. And I get to be super clear on that. And I will say that is an unexpected benefit, that freedom of just being like, "Oh, you hate me? Okay." Like I can't do anything about it. I can't make you like me. Whereas when you're playing the game, you're always like, well, do they like the me, or do they like the business version of me? Or like, what if they found out that I really believed XYZ? You're always like doing all those little spinny diddle-doodles in there.
Yeah. And like you were saying, you created your ride. And like, I had a moment recently where it was the beginning of a program that I was running. And on the first day, I was feeling all this like love and excitement for the people, and I was telling them that. And I was thinking, everybody seems okay with this very gushy part of my personality. And then I was thinking, well, yeah, duh. Like that's what happens because you've been acting this way all along the way. So before they met you, they were seeing you act this way. This is kind of how you talk. And so there isn't a big surprise. And without doing it very consciously, even, I then had created the world I wanted to live in where, yeah, gushiness is allowed and my full personality is, not just tolerated, but it's what people were expecting, is what they signed up for. Like, not just my personality, but it was part of the package. So, yeah, we get to build our own ride.
That leads me, you're making me think of something. When people now will sometimes join my orbit or come into the membership group or whatever, we have kind of an onboard intake process where we learn about them. And so often now there is language around, I heard about this. I know Michelle's going to kick my butt. I know that it's going to be fun. I know she's going to love me or whatever. Like, it's like, I don't even know these people yet at all. And yet the reputation, the brand really has preceded me. And I love what you're saying about like, oh, wow, they're actually like coming for that. Because my encouragement to anyone listening is this: it is going to show up whether you want it to or not. At some point in your work with any client, you in your fullness are going to show up. And so then the question becomes, do you want that to be a moment of joy where your client is like, finally, I get to see that thing that I fell in love with? Or do you want it to be a moment of shock and surprise when they're like, well, who the heck is this lady?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that is a guiding question for me now as a result of the 30-day experiment, is when someone comes into my world, I want them to know what they're going to have up front, because that really establishes also the rapport for our work together. Like, if you know how I talk, if you know that I'm going to encourage you, but I'm also going to call you out, then you show up and you expect that of me because you know that's where the results are. But if I pretend like I'm all things to all people and I can get along with anybody, then what do you know? You don't know what to expect.
Yes. Yes. And then we can't be pissed at people for being surprised or not enjoying us when we're in our zone of genius if we had been hiding that all along.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I do still have clients that I think when I look back, I can really see like, oh, this person began to no longer want to be my client anymore the more I fully step into my authentic self. And it takes me to task, because usually the response to that is, you've changed, Michelle, right? You changed. And then the question becomes, have I changed, or have I just finally accepted myself out loud? And I think it's probably both and. With every I mean, you grow, obviously you change, hopefully. But it's such a good litmus test, challenging us to stay authentic to ourselves.
I really love this. And I love the idea that as you're listening, you're thinking, what will my 30-day experiment be? What will I let go of and just give it a try? See what happens, see how it feels, see what kind of liberation it brings. I love it.
You know, tiny risks, Annie, are the gateway to magical change. And I think they're a great way to practice the big leaps that we will have to make when we kind of realize that we want something else. So, even if your 30-day risk is like, I'm going to wear the same clothes for 30 days and see if anybody notices, right? Or like, I mean, I guess you can't say I'm not going to cut my hair because we're both in California. It's like we don't have the option to cut our hair sometimes. But, those little baby risks, there's such an opportunity, friends. There's such an opportunity for you to grow those risk muscles and take it to the next level, because the baby risks are what's going to give you the ability to take those really big risks and trust yourself.
Yes. Yeah, you got to use that muscle. Yeah. Michelle, what are you super excited about? in 2021 and beyond?
Oh, I I am excited about riding the wave of continually choosing to be myself. I think that's kind of one thing too, is like this idea of the 30-day experiment, and then it was over and I went back. No. Like I did it and then I went, this works. I'm going to continue to do this. And it was kind of the gateway to continually do it. And this year I've chosen, do you do word of the year, Annie? Are you into that?
I do a phrase every year, although this year it is a word. Yeah.
Nice. So my word this year is significance. And I chose it because I'm also certified Clifton Strengths coach. So it's a Clifton Strengths thing.
Mm.
But I chose it because it is in my top 5 and it is the hardest thing about me. It's the thing I wrestle with the most because I have the most stories around. Right. So even coming onto your podcast today and saying out loud, I need my claps. Right? Coming here today and saying, I'm a performer. I want external feedback. Those are like little ways that I'm exampling significance and risk taking and showing up for myself in the world. And when I do that, I feel excited. So when you ask me, well, what are you excited about? I'm like, I'm excited to keep doing this. I'm excited to keep showing up for whoever says, hey, do you want a platform? Do you want to talk? Do you want to be yourself in front of other people? And I think people get surprised because they think, well, you're a performer. How is that hard for you? But it's very easy to put on a character. It's very easy for me to do that. I can embody somebody else real easy. But to really show up as 100% in all your flaws, all your gross, and all your glory, that's what I'm excited about.
Mm. That makes me think of one more thing before I let you go. It makes me think of is I think there's this idea that I'm letting go of, that the fancier the platform, the more you got to probably do something else besides be yourself. And
Mm.
I mean, you're a big deal. So, like, if y'all don't know this, like, Michelle is a big deal, has a big platform, big audience, big ass business. And I think I think you're just helping me look at that and realize that I have that narrative and that that is, in fact, bullshit.
The narrative that
Thank you. Thank you for helping me clarify. The narrative that the fancier the platform or the bigger the platform, the more we need to actually package ourselves up in some different kind of way.
well, we are taught that. I mean, there's literally a formula for TEDx talk,
Yep.
like
Yep. Yep.
literally formulas for this. And I mean, we could have a philosophical conversation about why that works or why that doesn't because of like hero's journey and all that shenanigans. But I like that you are recognizing that that is a narrative because I do think it's true. And at the end of the day, even though there is that formula to the TEDx talk, the formula isn't what gets the views. It's that whoever showed up to give that talk showed up as themselves within the boundaries of that formula. And so even if you are feeling a little boxed in by the rules or the formulas, that is not the easy excuse to not be authentic, which I think it can easily become, oh, well, I couldn't show up by myself because they told me I had to XYZ.
Formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's what a play does, right? Here's the script, make it happen.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This has been really helpful. I can't wait to hear what kinds of 30-day experiments people come up with inspired by yours.
Would you tell me? Will you keep me posted?
Absolutely.
I would love it. Thank you so much for letting me be with you today. I had such a fabulous time.
I want to try something new and share a few key takeaways from this conversation. Number 1, identify the unspoken rules you may be following and question them. For Michelle, it was about not swearing, writing in a more academic way, and not being hyperbolic. She identified those rules before she could break them.
don't swear. People will not take you seriously if you swear.
Number 2, once you start living in this more you way, expect to feel uncomfortable at first. There will be unfollowers.
My first week, I was pretty sure that I was going to die.
Takeaway number 3, the benefits of being more yourself are going to show up over time. You'll create an audience and a community that comes to expect you to be how you most naturally like to be.
It's like, I don't even know these people yet at all. And yet the reputation, the brand really has preceded me.
Now, please tell me about you. Have you tried being more yourself in every place that you show up? What has that been like? What has the result been? Are you ready to try a 30-day experiment of your own? Tell me what you try and how it impacts you. Send me an email at info@coachingwithannie.com. Record a voice memo on your phone and email that to me at info@coachingwithannie.com. I would love to include your story in a future episode. You can find out more about Michelle Markwart Deveaux at faithculturekiss.com. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. And I most of all want to thank you. If you found this episode supportive, would you please share it with your favorite entrepreneur? That is how we reach more people. And I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. I will see you next time.